to the church lobby for
The Way Fellowship Church.
Listen, I'm hanging out with my little cousins here in the man cave at the crib. We're having a great time on this lovely Saturday evening, getting ready for worship. We hope you're getting ready for worship. Listen, I got a great word for you on tonight. It's a word I preached from my friend Mike Ayers over at the Brook Church. It's entitled, Don't Give Up. It's a timeless word. It's a fresh word. So listen, y'all, buckle your seatbelts and let's get ready to rock. Are you ready to worship the Lord with us this Saturday night? Yes?
yeah.
Let's do it.
It's indeed a pleasure to be here at the Brook Church. Pastor Mike is a good friend, dear brother, and not only him, but so many others in this fellowship have been great to me. So I'm just thankful for this moment and pray that God says something on tonight that will encourage all of our hearts. Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10. Starting at verse, I'm reading from New King James Version. And let me just say this, y'all. I'm preaching from my grandmother passed last year, and so I've been using her Bible every time I come to preach anywhere. And so I got my grandma's Bible tonight again. And so if I get a little excited, it's because my grandma with me. Let the church say amen. And if I throw my finger out like that, that means amen goes there. That means when I do like that, that means I said something really deep. And so that means amen goes there. So let's try it real quick. You got it. Hebrews 10, verse 35. Therefore, do not cast away, or your Bibles may say, throw away your faith or confidence, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. For yet a little while, and he who is coming will tarry, and will not tarry, and now the just shall live by faith. But anyone who draws back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not like those that draw back to perdition, but those who believe to the saving of the soul. Verse 35 again for emphasis. Therefore, do not throw away your faith, which has a great reward. So I just want to talk a few moments from this thought. Don't give up. Don't give up. God can and at times will use whatever he has to do to use to confirm his presence in the life of the believer. The heavens, the stars, history, nations, problems, and even death. I hate cancer. I hate it. This disease took my mama from being a healthy and vibrant woman full of jokes to a bedbound paralytic. She lost tremendous amounts of weight, her voice, and most of her motor skills. But one thing she never lost was her faith. Understanding her faith, she never got outwardly angry or bitter. My mom, Shirley Ann Hall, suffered stately as if she was on a mission. It was Tuesday, December 14th, 1999. Around 11 p.m. that the doctors came into MD Anderson Hospital and entered the waiting room to advise me that my mom would not make it through the night. It was in this moment that I told the doctors, the family, and everyone present that I wanted to talk to my mama alone. You see, my mama prior to this point had been non-responsive for 2 weeks, but her vital signs were normal, which is why we took her to the hospital in the first place, to understand what was going on. But as I entered the room to speak to my mom for what I believed to be the very last time on this side of heaven, I began to tell my mama that she didn't have to worry about my little brother and my little sister, that I would do my best to take care of them. I told her that I loved her and that I thanked her that for all that she had done for me and all that she had sacrificed for me. I'm just spending some time with my mama, still unresponsive. Then I said to my mama, Mama, I believe that God is calling me to preach the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And after these words fell from my lips, she opened her eyes, smiled, and squeezed my hand. It was like the words that I spoke were the words she was waiting on. It was like hearing me say these words gave her the release that she was waiting for. Well, the next day came, and early that morning, the nurses came in and gave my mama a bath. And right after they got through bathing her, my mama breathed her last breath on this side of heaven. And when she died, yes, y'all, I wanted to throw in the towel. I wanted life to stop. I wanted everything to end. I felt like giving up. I share this story because as I stand before you today, 4 years after trying to plant a church, in 18 years after the death of my mama, I again have had to deal with the thoughts of giving up. Because things haven't turned out like I thought they would have turned out. And maybe someone in this room tonight, here at the Brook Church, you have similar thoughts of giving up running through your mind. And if you're here tonight, can I share something with you? When my mama died, I had to learn to view her death from a different perspective. I had to learn to see my mom's death as being a thing that God was using to bring my mama, bring his plan in my life as a bigger picture of what he was trying to do in my life. And just the fact that I'm here, y'all, at the Brook Church with my big brother, Pastor Mike, from another mother, I'm doing what I told my mama I would be doing, preaching the uncompromising gospel. Just the fact that I'm here doing that is a testament to what my mama always told me when I was a little boy. My mama used to always tell me, whatever they can do, you can do better. In other words, what my mama was telling me was, don't give up. See, these last 4 years have been rough. I've failed more times than I've succeeded. I've been lied on and also mistreated. I've been hurt by folks that said they loved God and loved me. It got hard at times. Really, really hard. Matter of fact, it's hard right now, but I'm standing before you today doing what God has called me to do because of one thing: I did not give up. And the reason I didn't give up because God has been with me, and he's encouraged me via many of the relationships fostered right here at the Brook Church. Folks here have kept me trusting in the promise that God gave me. See, being a preacher doesn't make my struggle any different from your struggle. The only difference is that many folks that came in this room tonight did not come to hear a failing or a struggling preacher. You came to hear a victorious preacher. You came here because you want to hear a word from God dispensed through the preacher that will speak life into your situation. So that means this, y'all: I can't give up. And Pastor Mike can't give up because somebody is depending on us. Just because it doesn't look like what you thought it should have looked like doesn't mean it's time to throw in the towel. I hear what you're saying. And I know that you can't stand to take another loss. But can I let you in on a secret? For all that you've lost, there's still a remnant of your life that's worthy of love. We just got through singing about love. You have a family, you have a host of friends that need you, and you also have a life that beckons to be fulfilled. So we just can't give up because somebody is depending on us. You see, sometimes we're so preoccupied with what we've lost that we overlook what's left. You see, life's leftovers do not erase the pain. They do not erase the loss. They do not erase the hurt. But one thing they do remind us of is that we're not left empty-handed. See, we've got to learn this, y'all, and that is we've got to keep trusting what God said until we see what God said. See. So let me just slow down and teach you a little while. Paul says, he opens this letter. I mean, the Hebrew writer, we like to refer to him as Paul, but I know y'all some Bible scholars. But he sounds like Paul. So, well, no, won't y'all? I know how y'all do. So the Hebrew writer, we think is Paul, opens this letter talking to a group of dispirited Christians who looked at the misfortunes of their life and thought that the only thing to do was to give up on God. They had been following Christ for a long time, and as a result of following Christ, the text says that they suffered abuse and now had grown weary in the Christian way. So the first thing I want to share with us, and I only got 2 points, and I'm going to get out your way. The first thing I believe that this text is tailored to teach us. Can I just be comfortable and talk like I want to talk? The first thing I see is that we've got to remember our spiritual roots. We've got to remember and hold on to our spiritual roots. Unfortunately, far too many of us drift away from the faith that's been keeping us. But the text informs us to not throw away our confidence because it will be richly rewarded. But when you've given it your best and your best just don't seem like it's enough, it's common for all of us just to want to throw in the towel and give up. But to throw in the towel would mean devaluing your spiritual heritage. If we consider what Jesus has done on the cross of Calvary as worthless, we might as well throw our salvation away with our faith. Have you ever asked, where is God in this mess? Where is God in my situation? Why didn't God give me a warning about what was about to happen? I've been coming to church. I've been doing what he asked me to do. How could you allow God? How could you allow something like this to be happening to me? Well, see, all of these questions are real. And when God is silent and you don't know where to turn and you're left pondering, why should I even continue? Because this is the thought in the back of your mind. What good is trusting a God if this is how things turn out? Well, the answer to your question is in the question that you asked. The reason you stay with God is because God stayed with you. This is why our spiritual roots are important. So let me help you understand what I'm trying to say. In his book, Alex Haley traces his family history back to the soils of West Africa to a clansman by the name of Kunta Kinte. Kunta Kinte was an African son. And Kunta, after being carried away from his native land to an alien country, could not reconcile being shackled in chains. So one day, Kunta set in his mind to escape through the fields and the wooded trails to try to free himself from this type of bondage. The barking hounds and the loud, vulgar voices of human hunters were not enough to make Kunta surrender what he thought was an evil or a torturous situation, because he thought that there was something better beyond the hot fields of slavery. When Kunta, it didn't work for him, y'all. So when Kunta was finally caught, he was chained and hoisted to the back of a buckboard. He was hung by his hands and his shirt was ripped, exposing his naked back. And then he was whipped publicly. And as if the public whipping wasn't painful enough to add insult to injury, the slave owner demanded that Kunta give up his name. Each time the whip cut into Kunta's back, the slave owner told him, "Your name is Toby." And the young African responded, "No, my name is Kunta Kente. This went on for what seemed to be an eternity. Your name is Toby. No, my name is Kunta Kinte. Each strike more painful than the first, but he would not give up his name. Finally, Kunta could no longer bear the pain of this whip and collapsed under the pressure of the slave owner. However, with his last conscious breath, Kunta finally whispered, my name is Kunta. You see, y'all, for Kunta Kinte to have surrendered his name would have meant giving up his identity as a proud son of Africa. It would have meant turning his back on the teachings of his ancestors. To acquiesce would have meant to say, my history is worthless. To recant his name would be worse than death. Because here's what Kunta knew, y'all. He knew that his name was all that he had that connected him to his past. And he also understood that his name was his passport to freedom. And although the slave owner referred to him as Toby, he knew his name was Kunta. He held on to his name because his name had worth. And because, now listen, don't miss this, y'all. Because he held on to his name, Alex Haley was able to locate and draw his line of his ancestry back to Kunta Kinte. And all I'm trying to say to us tonight is that our faith, our spiritual heritage should be just as valuable to us as Kunta's name was to him. Regardless of how difficult life may be, we can never let go of our name, our faith, our spiritual heritage that we got from God. Let me get this second one and I'm going to get out of here. We're not going to give up. We've also got to remember that there's a reward waiting for us. There's a reward. The text says that by holding on to our faith, we will receive a great reward. Now, although the great reward is not identified, we do know that it's something better than what we have right now. In other words, there's something better in store for all of us that's greater than anything we've ever acquired or greater than anything we've ever endured. Someone once said it like this: we live forward by going backwards. But the Hebrew writer puts it like this, verse 36, we need to persevere so that when you've done the will of God, you will receive what he's promised. So the backward look gives way to the forward gaze. In other words, instead of wavering and shrinking back and losing out on the great reward, we need to ask for the endurance to persevere when times get tough. To persevere in the will of God is to receive the promises of God. And when we look at the testimony of the Old Testament saints who dared to believe God, their only hope was in something better that God had promised. And so we should do the same thing. We should rest in the presence of God and then patiently persevere through whatever pain we have to go through and wait until the promise that God promised us makes its arrival in our lives. And this is the hope that we find in the cross. Now, the question on the floor tonight is, do you believe that? Do you believe, because that's the last thing I want to talk about. Because the text says that the righteous, that's us, y'all, shall live, verse 38, by faith. And the only way any of us are going to walk out of here with the right perspective about whatever it is that we're going through, we're going to have to do it by faith. I believe that God will do just what he said he would do. And if he said there's a reward on the way, that's what I'm going to believe by faith. The righteous live by faith. The best of life is lived by what is not seen. The Hebrew writer calls it like this. He says, they're the things that cannot be shaken. Now, I'm not saying, let me slow down here and get a little apologetic with you. I'm not saying that we should throw reason out the window with logic, presupposing that reason and faith are at war with one another. Because in my mind, reason informs faith. and faith guides reason. That's why we don't need evidence to believe what God has said. In other words, because y'all act like y'all didn't get that one. In other words, the fact that I'm still walking the streets of Freedmanstown, sometimes by myself, after 4 challenging years of church planting, is still because I believe that God will still do what he said he was going to do. Now look this, that's my faith informing my reasoning. But watch this. And the fact that just 2 weeks ago, I was working with the Freedmanstown Pastoral Coalition to develop and strategize a Juneteenth celebration. Although my Bible study don't look like theirs, oftentimes my Bible study is in the single digits. That's my reasoning being guided by my faith. Somebody was supposed to shout right there. So in the same vein, I came to tell everybody in the room, don't shrink back. In other words, don't give up. Because if you shrink back, you forfeit your future with God. And just like the boat that's been tied to the dock, as long as the ropes are holding it, it will stay tied to the dock. But if the ropes come untied, the waves will cause the boat to drift away from the dock. But worse than that, y'all, is the life that comes untied from the dock of faith. And the sad commentary is that somebody in here listening to me right now may have allowed the troubles of this life to untie them from the dock of faith. And now you're slowly drifting further and further away from God. And watch this, you don't even realize it. When I stop by on my way to heaven to let somebody know, don't allow the disappointments of this life to color your perspective on God. Anybody know Hardy Jackson? Hardy Jackson. No? Okay. Let me tell you about Hardy Jackson. Hardy Jackson is a Hurricane Katrina survivor. And Hardy Jackson grew up his whole life in New Orleans, Louisiana. But Hardy Jackson teaches us something. And he teaches us a valuable lesson, even through his wife, Tanya. And they teach us that sometimes we've got to learn to hold on by letting go. That's the principle that Hardy Jackson teaches us. Let me tell you the story of Hardy Jackson because y'all looking at me kind of funny. Hardy Jackson grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. Hardy Jackson had seen hurricanes before. Hardy Jackson had rode out hurricanes before. So when the reports came to evacuate, Hardy Jackson had heard those evacuation announcements before. And he had ridden out hurricanes before after he ignored the warnings to evacuate. And so Hardy Jackson said, we ain't got the money to get on the road. We're going to hunker down like we've hunkered down before, and everything's going to be all right. And so as they began to hunker down, Hardy Jackson's wife and 2 children are in their home. It's a 2-story home. And the water begins to rise in their first floor. So Hardy and his family retreat to the 2nd floor of their home as 6 feet of water fill up their first floor of their home. And as the thunder and the rain is beating across his roof and the wind is howling, his family, his wife, and 2 children, they're hunkered down in the top floor of their home. When the unthinkable happens, this violent storm we know as Katrina rips the roof off of their home. And the winds pick Hardy and his family up and throw them into the currents that are flowing down his street. And here's Hardy Jackson, y'all, with his wife in one hand and his 2 children in his other hand. As this violent storm carries him down the street he once called home. And here's Hardy Jackson, y'all, with everything that means anything to him in his arms. And he's being carried down the street that he called home. The wind is howling like a freight train. The rain is pouring down, and the currents are carrying him down the street, and it's deafening, y'all. And above this deafening noise, Hardy hears these words, Hardy! It's his wife, Tanya. She says, Hardy, let me go. Let me go. Hardy says, baby, I'm not doing that. You're my wife. You're my lover. You're the one I promised to love and to cherish. And this ain't how it's supposed to end. We're supposed to live a good life until natural death takes us apart from one another. This is not how I wrote the script. Hardy! She screams again. Let me go. Hardy said, I can't do that, baby. Because I promised God before all those witnesses to love you and to cherish you. I'm not going to do that. Tanya says, one last time, Hardy, let me go. But hang on to the kids. Hang on to the kids. And against his better judgment, y'all, Hardy listens to his wife and lets her go. Tanya Jackson knew something that I hope all of us walk out of here with. See, Tanya Jackson understood that although her life would be sacrificed, it would always be memorialized through her children. She understood that even though she was giving up her life, she would live on through her children. And I hope that somebody in this room understands that sometimes you hold on by letting go. And all I've been trying to communicate, the only story I've been trying to communicate tonight is that you let go of all the things that you don't understand. No, I don't understand why certain things had to happen. I don't know. I don't know why they said what they said. I don't know why they did what they did. I don't know why you lost what you lost. But let go. And hang on to the promise that God gave you. Hang on to the things that God promised you. And let go of all the things you don't understand about what's going on in your life right now. Let it go. Because here's the principle that I hope all of us walk out of here with. If Hardy hangs on to everybody, there's a potential that everybody dies. But by letting go, the family name lives on. And I'm trying to say to you, if you continue to hold on to the things that cause you discomfort, the things you don't understand, what they said, what they did, the bitterness that rose up in you when they did what they did, when they didn't say they were sorry, when they didn't apologize. If we hang on to that, it can kill us. And so Hardy Jackson teaches us the valuable lesson of letting go and holding on. Hold on to God and the promises he gave you, and let go of everything you don't understand Rest in his presence. And don't give up. Let me pray for you. Lord, I thank you for your word, and I thank you for this host of believers that trust you now, that desire to rest in your presence, that desire to let go and hold on to the promises that you've given all of us, God. God, your love is great. It never runs out. God, we're thankful for the love that you've given us. God, we love you so, so much. Thank you for your word. Thank you, God. We don't want to give up. Keep us, strengthen us. Give us the endurance, the patient perseverance for the struggles and the trials that stand